Hey, Josh.
What the hell do you want? See, I'm funny.
Now I can't remember the joke. Why can't I remember it?
Holy cow.
Why?
I hope you're recording this. Just air that. Just air that.
I remember it. Why did the man put his money in the freezer? Because were you actually like trying to try to?
Yes, I was. That's what you do when you ask questions.
It's not a trivia question. It's a joke. Because he needed cold, hard cash.
Okay. You're banned from Joke Central.
Well, it's because you cut off my research early.
That's funny. I'm Josh Sigman, and I'm a mortgage lender. I'm also a geek for money, not just earning it and saving it, but literally everything about it. I love that money has rules. It has its truths. I love investment strategies, and I love making money work for us. For so many, money is emotional. For me, it's logical, like a puzzle. My passion is also helping others with their money. I love looking at people's finances, dissecting their puzzle, and rebuilding with strategy and purpose, and I'm really good at it. I'm making this podcast about my money strategies, not the things that are written in books or sold in programs. It's a podcast outlining the lessons I've learned and used for the past 15 years. These strategies help me and those who use them save more, give more, create wealth, and retire early. Let me teach you how to build your net worth. You ready? Welcome to Sigman Sense. All right, what do you want to talk about today, Brynn?
I want to talk about from a business perspective, profit and loss.
Okay.
I want to talk about investing in your business.
Okay.
And whether that looks like hiring new staff or investing in a new software or program.
Okay.
Because I feel like I know for a fact you're very good in this area, and specifically around hiring. I mean, you did make the choice to hire me, and that was fabulous. No, you're really not quick to hire. You are willing to hire and invest in the team much earlier than a lot of other business people that I see.
Okay.
And I know that if it was me, I would probably fall on the other side of the line as well, because it's nerve-wracking to hire somebody and have that fixed overhead.
It's a responsibility.
It's very scary. And so I think a lot of people, it stops them in the tracks right there.
Sure.
And I would, it's the mentality is I can do this all by myself. So why take on the additional overhead? Right.
Yeah.
But obviously we know that everybody has a max capacity of what they can do. So it truly limits your growth, and it limits your, what you are able to do, as far as production or whatever. So I think it's worth talking about, because I want to know, are you good at hiring and confident hiring because of budgeting and because you're strategic and really in tune with the money side and the P&L, that it allows you to make those decisions because the money is there? Or is it more of a business approach that it's part of the strategy and it's part of the growth, right? So I really just want to kind of talk through that. And I think, one thing we hear all the time is so many people don't run a P&L. For their businesses. And so I think we should also talk through what basic P&Ls look like and how to do them. And one thing we always talk about is, when people go into business for themselves, it's usually because they have a passion of some kind, right? The chef that loves to cook opens a restaurant. The decorator that, has such a talent for interior design opens an interior design business.
Right.
Things like that. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're sound business people or understand P&Ls.
Yeah.
And so I think first and foremost, it's like it's being okay with that, because I think a lot of people get embarrassed about that.
Sure.
And so just kind of laying it on the table that it's okay, and running through some just very Just some simple, like, how do you do it? How do you do a P&L?
Well, we did a P&L class in general, so you can look at it. We can go back to that for reference, but
Not an episode, like a class.
Yeah, I did when I was by myself without you.
That one wasn't about P&L, was it?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't believe so, but okay.
But it's okay.
Of course we did. Just kidding.
But I think
You're right.
I think it's an interesting conversation as a whole.
Yeah.
And I think my answers have probably changed over 16, 18 years. You struggling there, kiddo?
I'm stuck in the carpet. There you go.
Okay.
All right.
That's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing.
So let's talk about this. So I think that the you had 40 questions in there, so I think it's fun to talk about. Let's start with the when, why to hire, things like that, like why I might be more willing to hire people and some people might be more conservative. I think it starts with deciding what it is you want your business to look like, right? I don't think people take the time to work on their business, not in their business, right? So I think that you have to first decide what it is that you want. There are people that want to stay small, and that's awesome. If they want to stay small, you have to realize that you are the everything piece of the business. If it's you by yourself or you plus one assistant, it's certainly easier to manage. There's certainly more flexibility, right? But all lines lead to you.
Right.
And so that means that you've got to be the supplier, you've got to be the service person, the director of first impressions, the CEO, the CFO, the COO, the everything to everybody. And
there's also no backup too. I think
there's none or little. Yeah, for sure. And so what are the pros and cons? I think the pros are that, small organizations are definitely more nimble. So you can change on a dime. Why? You just make it your own damn decision and do something different. Like, I want this color of shirt and that's the end of it, right? Mm-hmm. I want to change my brand. That's the end of it. So they're definitely more nimble. They are, again, it depends on the industry, but small can be very profitable because you don't have lots of overhead, because you can work out of your home office. As an example, you don't have to employ people. You don't have the extra taxations, things like that. There's certainly less quote unquote pain in the ass factor of managing people because more people, more problems. For sure. So there is that. And then, I think that there is something as a pro that the person to person business, the people to people business of, whoever you're working with, they are the boss. It's nice to work with the boss, right? So there are definitely some pros to it. I think that on top of that, the risks are lower in some ways, but not all. Meaning that, if you have a budget at all and you have any reserves at all and you're by yourself and you go a month without a paycheck, no one lost their job.
Right.
Right. Whereas the more people you have, the more paychecks and responsibility you have to pay them. Like, I'm not very aware of very many salaried people that are okay with being a few days late on the 15th.
Right.
Like, I was expecting my paycheck on the 15th, but I know the company's not doing well. So how about just pay me at the end of the month whenever you feel like it? Like, that doesn't work that way. So I think that's definitely a piece of it for sure.
That's what I hear most often, honestly, is I am so nervous to bring someone on because of the responsibility and what if I can't pay them? Yep. That's what I hear most often.
I think that's really good to understand. What I will tell you, the cons are there's absolute limited capacity for an individual or a small team or a small company. There's absolute limited capacity. You can only, if you're a realtor as an example, you might be able to sell 5 or 10 homes. 10 would be crazy, but in a month by yourself, but you'd hate yourself. But it'd be very profitable, right? And
you wouldn't have any time to spend it, so you just save it all.
Well, and think about vacations too. When you're gone, the business is closed.
Exactly.
So there's a limited capacity. All lines lead to you. There is no IT department to fix your problems when your computer doesn't work. Like, it just, to me, is not what I want, right? So the other end of the spectrum is you decide.
Did you always know that though, or?
I don't think so. I think intuitively, and I got some good guidance along the way, that at some point, you have to be okay with having zero personal balance in life. Like, work 90 hours a week if you want to keep growing, if you want to grow a business in general. I do think a good concept to remember is that your business is either growing or dying. There is no standing on the pinnacle. So, you can't just sit back on your laurels and expect it to go fine forever. You always have to be growing at some point. So the growth and the reinvention requires extra time, energy, and effort. And it's going to come from you, and your 40-hour work week just became 80, or you need help. Mm-hmm. At some point, I think that we all have to come to that conclusion. So
when you started in lending, the plan wasn't, I'm going to become a lender and grow a team.
No, I think for most people, I was 23 years old or whatever. I think for most people, it's like get a job and like pay the bills.
Yeah.
At the beginning, it's just like anything else. It's just, I need to pay bills. I think this is interesting. I'll start it. But it goes back to, what are you doing every day, right? Like, are you working for a paycheck, or are you enjoying growing something, right? Mm-hmm. And so when it comes to an owner position where you might hire or you might not hire, I think when you look at most businesses that never, ever take the leap of faith of hiring somebody, you can see that there's a really dramatic kind of up and down cycle annually. So the reason why is I was taught that there's three parts of business. There's marketing, operations, and finance. And when you think about what the first problem is when you first get into business, the first problem is I have no revenue. I've sold nothing.
Right.
Right. So it's
kind
problem,
of they're all problems. I have no processes and procedures. I have no business and no money.
Yeah, but day one, who cares about process and procedures if you have nothing to work on, right? So, or if you haven't sold anything, you don't have any logistical supply chain issues if you haven't sold anything yet, right? Yeah. So the first problem is money. Like day one, minute one of any new job, new business, I should say, the problem is money. So the solution is to market. The solution is to move product, right? So whether that's a tangible item or a service item, you've got to sell something, and so that's a marketing issue. So what people tend to do is they'll work on that wholeheartedly. So whether they're the salesperson, or whether they're putting stuff on the internet, or whether they're trying to market things through social media, they're marketing. And so they market. And it turns out that most people that are any good at this at all, they sell something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Family
activity
and friends
breeds activity.
Yeah, family and friends first, and then sphere of influence, and it keeps on going. And all of a sudden, you've got it seems like a business.
Yeah.
Because now you've got some revenue coming in, and so what ends up happening is that creates an operational issue. The more product that's moving or service that's being sold, the more of a logistical operational issue it becomes. And so what the typical sole proprietor does is they stop marketing.
Yeah.
Because they've got to take care of these little golden eggs. They got to make sure they hatch. And so whether I've got to send this thing to Denver, or I've got to close this loan in my case, or whatever, now they're solely focused on getting the product to the finish line, right?
Yeah.
And so they're doing that all the time. And what ends up happening is that creates another problem, right? Because as we go to operations, there really is only one way to fix operations, and that is to hire somebody to help with operations. Which creates a finance issue. And the only way to fix the finance issue is to go back into marketing. Okay.
Right.
Well, if you never take that leap of faith of I marketed well, I got lots of stuff in the business, and now I'm stopping and doing it. That's why you have the stop, because you actually go backwards, don't go forward. So you're just jumping back and forth between marketing operations. So and you never turn the corner.
Just like popped into my head, but this is probably where the fear of I'm not going to have enough money
for sure, or skill set,
hire someone,
or
because if they're feeling that start and stop, they're feeling the inconsistency in a business, and so that's going to translate to, oh my gosh, well, if I have these inconsistencies by myself, what happens if I bring someone along for the ride? But it's counterintuitive because it's that the person, the hire, will hopefully fix some of those issues that will keep you in a marketing phase more consistently, or the hire will be.
To me, it's a super easy equation. If you hire somebody 40 hours a week and so let's say that you're that sole proprietor that markets really, really well and brings business in, and now you hire somebody to do the operations, and your 40 hours a week had gone to 80 hours a week. So now you're back to 40 hours a week. The question is, what do you do with your time?
Right.
That's the question.
Right.
So if you spend that extra time marketing more, you will be less inconsistent as you were in the past. Or you can literally buy your time back, right? So to me, the first hire is, do you just want to work your normal 40 hours a week and need somebody to help you with the transactional side of things so you can do the front side of things? Or does it give you more time to do more of the dollar generating activities? And for me, this is just a reminder about red time and green time. Red time is non-dollar productive activities. Green time is dollar productive activities. And the whole focus point for us always has to be, as business people, is to stay focused on dollar productive activities. So that's forward-looking conversations about prospecting, conversations in relationships, conversations with new opportunities. That's dollar productive activities. Now, getting the job done is, believe it or not, is not a dollar productive activity. We still have to, in lending, you still have to order appraisals and surveys and title and insurance and gather docs and all that stuff, which is important, but it's not actually green time, right? So if you can hire somebody to do that, that is a lower dollar productive activity. It's important, but it's a lower dollar productive activity. So if I can have somebody do that for me, and I can go create a higher dollar productive activity with that time I freed up, then the business makes more money to pay for that person and to allow me to keep on growing, right?
So if you're the owner that really doesn't want to be a salesperson, or if you don't want to be the person that's bringing in business, then what are some good swap outs for that person, right? So let's say I'm the owner that
there's a million and one ways to generate. You're in marketing yourself, so you get it. But obviously this day and age, social media.
But this is the owner that doesn't want to do that, though. Yeah.
Well, you can outsource those things,
right? You can. So what would a dollar productive? So let's say I'm the owner that doesn't have any interest in bringing in the business anymore. So I'm going to hire that off. Then, but I need to replace my time with good dollar productive activities. So what does that look like?
Likes the operation side?
Yeah, likes the
operation
side.
More than likely they never get off the ground.
Oh, okay.
More than likely they never get off the ground.
You think?
For sure. It requires sales to grow businesses. It requires selling something to grow business.
But if you can hire somebody to do that.
Yeah. I'm not saying that it's not possible. I'm saying more often than not, there's a lot of people, a lot of inventors that have great ideas.
Yeah.
And they can't sell shit. And so it never gets off the ground. There's a whole lot of that in the world. There's a lot of kids that are master programmers that can talk to computers and can't talk to people. And because they can't talk to people, their ideas never get off the ground, right? And so my point in saying this is that you're not likely going to have a small single proprietor business ever that is somebody that's got a great idea that doesn't want to grow and won't hire, right? Because we're talking about the first one first. It's the sole proprietor.
Yeah.
Another way to think about this is doctors. I think doctors are a great one, right? You've got
yes.
You got a single practice. A sole practitioner. The doctor that has his own office, his own office staff, that has his own clientele. And that's awesome, right? When the doctor dies, there is no business because the business dies with the doctor. It's a sole proprietorship, right? A hospital has lots of doctors.
Right.
And so
within the office setting too, the doctor can only see so many patients. There is such it's such a cap,
Well, and again, if somebody's vision is that that's what they want, it's not a bad thing, right? If they just want to be a small town doctor and have relationships with their 100 patients, 200 patients that come through the doors, that's awesome. It's still, it will pay bills. It is not a sellable business.
Not a sellable business, yeah.
Because when the doctor is out, the doctor's out.
Correct.
When the doctor dies, the doctor dies, right? And you compare that to, again, with what you want. Do you want a hospital? The hospital has lots of doctors. And if a doctor dies, retires, or moves, the hospital is going to be just fine, right? So you have to first identify what you want. But my point is that the only operational type of sole proprietorship that kind of works, in my opinion, is where the product is so desirable, or the service is so desirable that people come to you, right? That typically comes to the In the service industry, it's the buy referral only kind of thought process.
Right.
I think that's a trademarked idea. It's not an original statement, but the buy referral only concept is that I take such good care of you because I'm by myself and I'm gonna help you do whatever I need, whatever I sell as a service, that you refer your 3 friends. So I don't have to be a great salesperson.
Right.
All I got to do is do what I do. Right.
Yeah.
So that works if you do an exceptional job, if you're the plus 1%, if you're the raving fan mentality, you can do that indefinitely. And that's the story of most realtors as an example. Most realtors,
Good point.
Is a sole proprietor that they live and die based on their own reputation. They live and die based on their own service levels, their own ability to call people back. And they don't have to be a great salesperson over time as long as they are great at the service they give to the few clients that they had, that those people advertise for them. So that's an example of how that works. Is a great realtor is worth the weight in gold. Like somebody that actually knows the values, actually knows the process, actually knows how to fix the problems, all those things is absolutely worth the weight in gold, and they'll get those referrals. But the flip side is pushing tangible products, small business out of the basement. It doesn't get off the ground if you can't sell it. Which goes back to you got to have a marketing strategy of some sort, right? So I think that gets a little bit off task.
Just a tad, but
I think it's worth talking about because
totally.
I think your question was, well, how do you know when you should or how you should, and does P&L help you and money help you? And the answer is yes, of course it does. And to me, it's 3 or 4 well thought out ideas make it's funny, the emotional side go away, right? We always talk about money is emotional.
Yes.
So if somebody that's listening to this, if the fear of hiring somebody is tied to the money side of it, then the 3 or 4 steps I'll give you right now really will help you. It's what I think about. It's the first thing is that I want to be really clear about what I free up or what I don't have to do if I hire somebody, right? Because again, all of us have different dollar activities that we do every day. Some that are menial, some that are super important. But so I want to make sure that whatever I'm offloading allows me to free up the time to do something higher dollar productive activity with, right?
Yes. And then I know we've talked about this before too, is when you are feeling really overwhelmed and stressed and you don't have enough time in the day and you're considering making a hire, is keeping an ongoing list, like on your desk with
and
you.
Also your calendar. Like I used to track before I hired my first assistant ever, Sigman A. What I did is every half hour on the half hour, I literally wrote down what it was I did all that half hour.
Right.
And it really came down to 3 things. Did I like it? Yes or no? Did I need to do it? Yes or no? And could somebody else do this? Yes or no?
So do I like it?
Yeah. Did I like it? Because I want to do stuff I like all day long, right? Do I need to do it?
You personally?
Yes,
do you
because
have
there's
to be
certain things that I need to do that I can't offload.
So is it a you thing?
Yeah. And so is this something else I could teach somebody else to do? Somebody else could do for me? Yes or no questions.
And
right?
most of the time, everything
that makes it a logical question. It removes emotion. That's why I always did that.
Yeah.
So I used to write those down, and then the first hire I ever had was I literally sat there with the highlighter, and every time that the last 30 minutes was something I didn't like to do and something I didn't need to do and something that I could hire out, I would highlight it, which equated like 75-80% of my calendar. Which, by the way, anyone that's listening, that is the truth.
Wow.
Like 80% didn't fall on the I need to, and is not somebody else could do as good or better than me, right?
That is that's such a big deal because I think that it is the truth, and we do get caught up in, I have to be the one that does this. I hear this a lot with real estate agents. I have to be the one that takes care of these clients. I have to be the one that is showing up at this inspection, this whatever, there's a lot of examples.
It's just not the truth.
It's
the truth we tell ourselves, but it's not the truth. There's a big difference, right? So,
and
so
why?
let me give you
I
an
wonder
example
why
if you're
that is.
listening
Is it like a security thing? Like, makes me feel good to know that I have to be the one that does this.
There's some ego that comes with it. Number one. Number two, some of it comes from our parents, where if it's gonna be done right, it's got to be done by you. Yeah. Right. Number 3 is a relational thing. Like you feel like you can't hand something off because then you're handing off a relationship, which are just not all the case. It's just how you do it. And it goes back to operational consistency and proven concepts. But let me just give you like a normal realtor's day. because this will paint the picture for a lot of listeners. A normal realtor should spend some time on the phone calling prospective listings or buyers. Very little. I coach realtors nationwide, so I know very little time of every day. Less than an hour is actually devoted to that for most agents. And I would say less than an hour a week is actually devoted to that.
Yeah.
Second thing that you've got to do is that you've got to service your existing clientele. So this means that if you're working with buyers, you've got to go show properties, which takes a tremendous amount of time. If you're going to look at, 8 properties with this buyer in the morning and 8 properties with this buyer in the afternoon, it seems like you've had a great sales day. But the truth of the matter is that those 4 hours might equate to one sale, maybe.
And you literally can't do anything else.
And you
during
can't do anything else, right? Because you're undivided attention. That's exactly right. Third thing that has to happen is the paperwork, right? So for the clients that are in process, you've got to manage timelines, getting inspections done, getting surveys ordered, getting title company stuff taken care of, making sure you cross the T's and I's with the legal documents and contracts you do. So there's lots of paperwork there. Lots of realtors like to do the touch points at the end. So they like to do thank you cards, or they'll do a gift possibly at closing, something like that, which takes time to go find the gift, buy the gift, bring the gift, right? They've got to go to closings. So, most realtors will show up at a closing table to make sure that it was done right. Last opportunity to talk to a client. And that's all stuff that falls into a normal day. Okay. So what of that entire day would I consider green time? Like an hour.
Yeah.
Of the entire day. And here's what that looks like. The couple
calls or writing a contract with the buyer if they write it.
Right. So not the showing, not the paperwork, not the letters, not the gifting, not the returning calls, not any of the stuff that has to be done, right? But the only thing that really falls into green time in those examples is, did you make outbound calls to solicit new business, number one? And number two, did you sign a contract? Sign it. Like, did you get them to make an offer, right? Because you can't make money showing properties. You can make money if a contract's accepted. So if you think of it in terms of that, then you say, okay, well, if I go down my list of, do I like doing it? Do I have to do it? And is this something that's hireable? I would argue everything else on the list falls into, I could train somebody else to do it. I don't love it. Some agents do love showing properties. That's okay.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot that
There's
do.
a lot that do. Doesn't mean you have to do it, because you don't have to do it. That's why there's something called showing agents.
Which I think that people, that will be a huge, not a negative argument. Yeah. But we get a lot of pushback on that. Is, the idea of somebody else showing your clients. Yep. And it makes some realtors very, very uncomfortable.
Well, you can be uncomfortable, or you can grow your business. Like
if it's, again, going back to if that's what you want.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So to me, then, if I was a realtor, I would say within the first year that I would hire somebody or 2 people to do all the other stuff that I don't like to or have to do, and I would try my best to put myself at the point of sale and marketing all the time. That's as simple.
What if you don't have the money for it, though? Or what kind of? Well, so is this? Do you go back to the 6 months of reserve in the bank before you make a hire, or?
Yeah, we're skipping ahead a little bit. I think that, like I said, the first thing is identifying what it is you're doing. So what are you hiring for? That's the first step. The second thing would be what the metrics are, right? So this is what I think I want them to do with it. But what are the top 3 job duties, and how do I measure that person, is something that most starting off businesses do very poorly. They hire people with / job duties. You are my assistant / marketing rep / door opener / and
because you are the one person in the world that is talented at every area of the business,
right? Which doesn't exist because you couldn't do it by yourself.
Exactly.
So don't expect somebody else to be able to do it by themselves. And so if they're going to drop the ball because you ask them to do so much stuff, you just have to make sure they're not dropping the ball on the 3 most or 4 most important things to do every day, right? So creating some sort of metrics around it are super important. The third thing is that if I hired this person, I think about what is the best case and worst case scenario. I always think about what's the best case. This also applies to if I'm going to take on a new software, something you had asked about, or if I'm going to start this new marketing endeavor, or if I'm going to rent this office out. Like, what are all the best cases and worst cases that you think about? What I've found for myself first, and I've learned over time, so now I've gone the opposite way, is I find that most entrepreneurs are super optimistic. So the best case is for sure going to happen, and they don't overthink. They don't really give the worst case a real thought.
So often.
It's the
so
truth. Right?
Often.
It'll never, like, worst case scenarios, I'll stop doing it. No, worst case scenarios, you lost your ass and spent $60,000 this year that you could have had in your pocket, right?
Or severed a relationship. I always think about that is how does this, going back to how does this end? How do we get out of this?
Yep.
Peacefully, amicably, and that it's not going to tarnish our reputations. And, that's so important to think about, and there are definitely some things that it's like, if we would have thought about that first, it would have been a huge, like, glaring do not pass go, because there's only one way out of this, and it's going to be real painful for everyone involved.
That's exactly right. The third thing is that now you figured out what this person's going to do and how you're going to measure it. One of the next biggest mistakes people make is they don't really understand what that position is worth. So compensation itself is a big issue in properly hiring somebody, right?
This is, and I have to say it. I feel like it has to stem from just how freaking expensive life is. Mm-hmm. It's really expensive to live, really expensive to live. And so, I think people, one, it comes from a place of need. And two, if they're talented or good at this position, then it automatically, the connection is that I'm worth so much more because I'm good. Yep. When at the end of the day, it's still the same job.
Yep.
It's great that you're good at it.
Yep.
That's important, but it's still the same set of tasks and job duties.
Yeah. And this actually becomes a reason why people get burned, and they hired somebody one time. They either mishired, they quickly hired the wrong person, they overpaid the position, they didn't give really clear job duties, they didn't have really good measuring points. And so they end up, it didn't work out, and they fire him, or the person quits most of the time. Yeah. And then the answer that you tell yourself internally is, I need to just do this by myself. I can't hire somebody. And it's just, no, you just didn't think out everything up front. So, example is, I'm trying to think
one I've heard a couple of times too. And, I'm not going to lie, I've definitely had these thoughts occasionally from time to time, is I can't give them what they want. I can't give them what they want long term. There's no way that they'll stay with me because their dreams are too big. They're, and I can't fulfill that, which is really interesting. Really, really interesting. I just had that conversation with a couple people last week, and it's like, well, I wouldn't hire that. We were talking about the DISC personality profiling, and I don't think that I could. I don't think I want to hire a D because a D is going to leave me because there's, they're going to want to go and do it on their own and be the boss. And my argument to that is not necessarily D's. Not every D wants to be an entrepreneur. Ds want to know that there is growth and opportunity and that they can continue on some sort of path. And so as long as you can be really in touch with that, that's a really important piece to think about.
I would actually argue that's the case for all employees. Almost just the like no one wants to have a ceiling.
True. Yeah. Absolutely. It can be for all personality personality types.
Because I'm not the majority owner. I am a minority owner of the company, and I never left my boss. I just had my 16-year anniversary yesterday. So,
and I just had my 10-year with you, and I'm a high I, high D. Yep. And I think that what has worked.
Yeah, people say things in their mind that aren't accurate. If you create a good environment that people feel like they can succeed, that they feel like they're good at their job, that they feel like they're contributing, contribution matters. People have to understand what their piece is and how they're contributing to the bottom line. People want to be in a relationship with their boss and with their company. They want to feel good about what the company is doing outside of just the job. And yes, they want to be compensated or have opportunity to make more. It's a bigger picture, right? I think what it comes down to, though, is that doesn't mean that somebody that used to make X at this other company in this other industry is worth the same at this new job I'm hiring for, right? So, for example, if you're hiring, I might as well use the realtor example because I've already listed off lots of things about it, right? So, the older we get, the more entitled we think we are to our value. Like we're more attached to what I'm worth, right, in our head, and it's not the case. Not doing the same thing at the same company, right? Not necessarily. Okay. So
the older we get, the more entitled we tend to get.
Yeah, we start to have these false beliefs of what, like, unfortunately, there's a reason why highly compensated people that lose their jobs in their 50s most often are not able to replace their income. They go backwards.
Yes.
Well, yeah. So they rode the train. They made 50s, 60s, 70s. Now they made 100, 150,000 at a great paying job for 10, 15, 20 years. Let's just use that 150 number. Okay. Let's say that they're the absolute best at their craft at that job and they're making 150. Are you telling me that I can't find 3 people for $50,000 each?
That scares the shit out of me too. I mean, it's
all of us are replaceable.
I think
it's a very healthy mentality to believe that you're replaceable.
Well, in time,
because I think you'll work harder.
Yes, and I feel like there's been a huge evolution or shift in this. Like I can remember, when growing up, my dad was a corporate salesman, and we would, if ever we would go traveling with him or whatever, and we were with all of his colleagues, it was all older men or women that have been in their craft and these jobs for a very long time, and they're very good at what they do, and they're highly compensated. And that you just don't really see anymore. And I hate to say it's just a blanket. Corporate America, like
who's the first to go as you cut the fat. Middle management is the fat.
And I feel like that there's been such a shift. And it's like you said, get 2 young guns in with tons of energy that don't know any better or different, which is my favorite thing about new, fresh, young people, is that they just, if you don't tell them that this is hard or this is a lot of work or we're really busy, they don't have any freaking clue.
Yep.
They don't know any difference.
Yep. And they're energized and they've got youth on their side, and they run through walls they're still going to prove themselves to the world.
Absolutely.
Right?
But I feel like there's been a shift. Has there been a shift, or does it just seem like that?
Well, maybe we're just getting older and we recognize
I know
it.
That's like,
that could be it
real,
too.
Or is it
I do know that you better it's not about doing the best of your job. It's being the best of your job with a great attitude and continually growing and contributing at a higher level as you go. Right. So when I think in terms of, I'm pretty highly compensated, in this spectrum of the industry. And one thing I always think about is, as a competitor, I want to have my best year ever as often as I can, right? Like you have a high water mark, you can do that. Now you want to try and beat that, whatever that looks like. By the way, I measure that 2 ways. I want to do the same in less time, or I want to make more with the same time, right? So there's 2 ways to measure it.
I'm glad you clarified that. It's a really big deal.
Yeah. I would totally be okay making 1/3 less income if I could work less than 30 hours a week. There you go.
Really?
Tomorrow.
You'd make 1/3 of what you're making.
I would I'd get rid of my 1/3 of my income if I could. No doubt about it, to work under 30 hours a week, for sure. Tomorrow.
Go part-time.
Right. So, but the measuring point, if I think of, okay, I'm a partner, right? Partnerships don't always make it. I'm accountable to other people. Is I've got to say I can't coast, right? Because I think that. Right. I think that what a lot of people do is they get really super entitled in their position. I've been here. I don't have to do that anymore. I've already paid my way and all this stuff. And they stop doing for the company what it was that got them to their spot in the first place. Or they've arrived. They feel like they've arrived. Or
they haven't grown into a new skill set.
Right.
And evolved with a position.
That's right.
So I think that's a piece of it, right? Like,
yeah, it's staying in that growth mindset and contributing more and more, because what does it say? Spider-Man, right? Too much that's given, much is expected.
Spider-Man says that.
Well, yes, he does in the movie, which also comes from the Bible. But to much that's given, much is expected, right?
Yeah.
and that's just the truth. If I expect to keep on making what I'm making or more, then I better be leading by example. I should be growing my brand and my team. I should be growing my company. I got to be recruiting for my company. I got to be coaching up the people that work in my company. I got to do all these extra things to justify it. And there's a whole lot of hard workers at our company, a whole lot of them. And, no one at the company will say that I do less than them. You're
working your ass off.
I work my ass off, and that's totally fine. And I get compensated well for it. Right. The whole reason we brought this up is that when you're really getting into, you've set the metrics, you've set the job duties, you're really clear about what they're going to do. Now I've got to hire somebody. That hiring process is really pivotal, I think, in the success and outcome of the position in general, right? It becomes less than around the money at all if you can find the right person that's going to give you lift, right? Yeah. Like, I think in terms of, if I hire the right person, if they really could do all this stuff, the realtor, 80% of my workday is a waste of time. Needs to be done though. If I can hire somebody to do all this stuff for me, and I can go show 4 more people houses a week, I can pitch 5 more listings a month, it's inconsequential what you're paying this person, because as long as you get one more deal.
But the conversation is also assuming that they have the money to pay them. So where do you
start? Where does it come reserves from? Well, you start with reserves, right? You start with having reserves. It starts with that, the P&L and personal finance budget. We always talk about 6 months reserves, 3 months minimum, 6 to 12 months is a goal of reserves of your monthly expenses for business and personal. So I would say that if once you get to 6 months reserves, you're in a pretty safe spot. 6 months reserves of all expenses at home and at work. You could,
including a new salary. Should you consider?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So,
well, no, not even that much. No. 6 months of where you are, because what's going to end up happening is you've got a period of time. What you don't want to do is hire prematurely where you don't have enough reserves, where if you don't get more money in the door through the business in the first month or two, then it's a non-start, and you have to get rid of them because there's just no money to pay for 3 months. So there's got to be like when I hire somebody or a position or add a new position or a new software or do a podcast, right, I mentally choose I'm going to do this for a year, hell or high water. Like, I make the budget for it. I'm going to do it for a year, and then we'll readjust and evaluate, because I want to make sure there's enough time to get the bang for the buck and make sure we're getting the return on investment, the ROI.
Which is so big too. We are all so quick to pull the plug on things. Oh yeah.
There's so many examples out of marketing.
And when it gets uncomfortable because we're spending money on things and we are instant gratification society. So if we're not seeing that return immediately, then it doesn't work. And off it goes, when really what you're doing is throwing money down the drain.
Yeah, it's even worse.
It's worse.
And then of course you say it doesn't work. I'll just give 1,000 examples in 3 seconds. So people buy pay-per-click ads, right? So they buy these pay-per-click ads through Facebook or whatever else, and they don't convert something in the first 30 days, so they stop doing it. Well, was it the pay-per-click ads, or was it your lack of follow-up skills?
Or is it the fact that it just freaking started?
Yeah. Mail-outs, right? So
mail-outs are great,
people will tell you that mailing 2 properties is, gone with the dodo birds, except that I've got some really close personal friends that have been doing it for 20 years, and the number one source of their business are mail-outs, right?
Absolutely.
So the average, I think the average number of times you mail out is like 10 before somebody actually recognizes
before they can connect the dots.
That it's you,
and that's assuming that you're doing it like every 30 days.
Yeah,
you're not like I'll do it once a quarter for that's like they're never going to catch on.
So to answer your question about the reserves, yes, you've got to put aside a segment of business, and we hear the term you got to invest in your business. Like you got to make money you invest money to make money.
Right.
And that's the truth. You've got to segment off. It's not all return. You're building your business or you're using it like a cash cow. And either way is okay. But this goes back to what we're deciding we want the business to look like. Like if you are a sole proprietor of some sort, selling whatever you're selling, and it's giving you a revenue stream that you enjoy and that you love, then use it for what it is. It's a cash cow. If you are fine getting that $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 a month off that cash cow, then take good care of the cash cow. That is a fabulous business. It could be a $30,000 one.
Yeah.
There's examples of that all over YouTube these days, right? But at some point, if you say, okay, right, I use the example of I want to make either more money or save more time. Mine right now, you heard me loud and clear, I'd like more time.
Yeah.
So I hired 2 people this last week to help me do my job, which will take 6 to 18 months to train them up.
Absolutely.
But so it'll take 12 months of blowing money.
That's the other thing too, is then you have the decision of, okay, I've decided to hire. Now, do I hire a plug and play experienced person, which has its downfalls? It's great, but there's 2 sides of that coin. Or do I want
brand new
someone fresh that
I want somebody brand new that can teach that has no bad habits?
But we've also we've been in both seasons. We've had
necessity sometimes requires
absolutely, and that's where we were. Earlier this year was we really can't. We don't have the capacity to bring on a green person because we don't have the ability to train them.
Yep.
And so we have to. So I think that's, anyways. It's just there's different ways to look at that as well. Is what kind of person am I looking for? And also that will play into how much you are going to be paying for that person.
That's
too.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. But that's the way I kind of look at it. I'm just trying to give.
So let me ask you this then. So when thinking about, and let's just talk about investing in your business, because it's fresh on our minds as we're going to invest in a new CRM, a contact management system. Is there a percentage? Is there like a rule of thumb of what you should what amount of money you should use to invest?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's plenty of books that will give rule of thumbs about how much you should spend on marketing, as an example. Investing in your business is a gamble. So let's talk about a war chest. It's a war chest.
A war chest. Okay.
It's something that's good to understand. Okay. As long as money is inside the company and you're not withdrawing the money out of the company yet, you're not paying income tax on it yet, because it's invested within the company, right? Like you're reinvesting earnings, spending money to buy a CRM system that you get to write off, so that income is not income to you yet, right? Okay. It's offset by expenses within the company, right? So if I've got all this revenue, I get to subtract out whatever I'm spending on people and services and rents or whatever else, and whatever's left over that I distribute to myself, then I have to pay income tax on that income, right?
Is there a percentage? Is there a general rule of thumb about that? Like what you should?
Nope. But this is the concept that people don't get, right?
Okay.
There's two things you'll see most commonly, and they're the outliers and the extremes, and I think both are bad choices. Okay. The first school of thought is.
Are we still on the war chest?
Yep.
Okay.
The first school of thought is that I'm not going to withdraw anything. I'm starting off my business. I'm going to reinvest every dollar I make back into the business to get it going as fast as possible.
So I'm not going to make anything.
Not going to make anything.
So this is a person that has just planned for entrepreneurship. They've saved, they're set,
They probably didn't save. They're probably on a shoestring budget, and they are just truly pulling out enough to live, and that's it, to live. And they're investing every last dollar in their business to make it go. Okay. So good or bad thought. Here's the deal. I appreciate and love entrepreneurial spirit, and there's a very high percentage chance that company is not going to make it. And so let's just say that company, that restaurant, that bar makes it 3 years, and they reinvest and they reinvest and they're reinvesting. I think that is a poor choice, because at the end of the day, their last 3 years of potential gain in net worth, when the business finally did go bankrupt, they lost 3 years of income, right? Or 4 years of income,
right? Because
they left it in there because they wanted to war chest it. Like, I need the money in the business to keep reinvesting in the business, right? Now, when it works out, then you've got better springboard, because you can spend more money faster to make more money faster, which you're reinvesting faster. And so there's not a company out there that went from you never heard of before to on the freaking Super Bowl in 2 years that didn't war chest, use other people's money, reinvest their earnings back into it. I'll give you an example. Rocket Mortgage. Okay. So Rocket Mortgage is a fascinating example. They were really great at marketing. That's all they're really great at. There's something called one-day certainty, which all banks have access to.
Yeah.
Every single Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac kind of scenario, if you run a loan through an automated underwriting system, it tells you what limited documentation you need.
Yeah.
If it's super clean with 20% down and great credit scores, you need next to nothing. Like it's a paycheck, a bank statement, or whatever else. Very little documentation. They branded it and said, you click it, get a mortgage. Click it, get a mortgage, right?
Yeah.
Rocket Mortgage literally, as far as what their earnings are on loans, is in the bottom percentage of all banks out there as far as what they're actually earning. Like they make next to nothing compared. Like I would be afraid if my company made as little as they make per loan on their loans because they're spending all this money on marketing and marketing. Now
it's a division of Quicken, isn't it?
It is a Rocket is Quicken. Yeah, it's Rocket Mortgage is.
So is that a loss leader? Is that like a? I mean,
no, it's not a loss leader because what they did that's genius is marketing and branding made their market cap ridiculous. Where it just went public this last month, and I think it opened at like $20 a share, and today it's at 30.
Really?
$30 a share, right? I mean, their market cap is 100 times what a mortgage company's value is, making as little profit as they make. Okay, it's 100 times because everyone sees it. The branding and the marketing worked, and so people bought it, and people are investing in it because mortgage companies make money right now when the rates are 2.
Interesting.
Right. So my point is that they just reinvested, and it paid off big. Right. So people that are chasing that as the end goal, awesome. The other end of the spectrum is that they don't keep a war chest at all. There's people that they milk and bleed dry the company of every extra dollar. So if they have revenue minus the few expenses they've got, whatever's left, they literally put it in their bank account and they spend it on their family, right? So is that a good idea? Not if you want your business to grow, right? Like you're
or if you ever want to sell it or have
absolutely, because all the money is just gone.
But that's like using it like the cash cow, like you said earlier,
which
right?
is fine. It's fine. Think of it like a lawn service company, right? Yeah. So they've got 100 clients, each paying $250 a month for mowing yard service. Awesome. They're just literally filling up gas cans, fixing lawnmowers they want to, and then whatever's left over, they're keeping right?
Yeah.
But what they're not doing in that example is they're not buying a better, faster lawnmower.
Right.
They're not hiring one or two people to pay $100 on each of these yards for them to do the work, and now we can do 300 yards instead of 100 yards because they're not reinvesting. Or investing
in some marketing for a new side of town, new area, new neighborhood.
Exactly right. Okay. So I believe that somewhere in the middle is probably right. You know, you've got to invest in your business if you want to grow it consistently over time. You've got and reinvent yourself consistently over time.
So back to the question: is there a number?
Nope.
No. So
it's comfort.
It's just comfort.
It's comfort. This is just a risk thing. Like how much risk you're willing to take. There are people that will gamble it all. You know, and
how much you believe in
the product or service that you're providing
or that you're investing in. Like in this CRM example, how much do I truly believe in the fact that this is going to be an exponential, differentiator in our growth or whatever. I don't know if I said that right, but
yeah, it's amazing to me how many people have great ideas that didn't get in front of the right person, and they kept on investing time and money, and it never got off the ground, and they put their family at risk for it.
Yeah,
like they put their family at risk for it. So. I've got a number of examples like that I don't want to really get into because I'm trying to omit personal information, things like that. But it's amazing to me how many people will do that because they are they believe that their thing is the thing. And I'm not going to discourage people from doing that because I think that, if you've got something that you really believe in and you're passionate about it, go for it. But do I think that it's if you're going to do it, you better have a really clear idea of P&Ls and personal family budgets first.
Right.
Yes, because it's not just about how smart of an engineer you are, how great of an IT person you are, how cool of a product builder, service seller you are. You better have the finance piece behind it as well, or have somebody that can help you with the finance piece.
Have someone that can help you, for sure. Because
the last piece of this too is, what's the ROI, which to me really helps you decide what you're going to pay for something, like pay for a person hiring wise or pay for a CRM system. what's the expected ROI? Because I do think that there's some pretty good guidance there for marketing in general, that if you don't at least get 10x on your money, at least 10x, you shouldn't even consider it. Like that's a good rule of thumb.
10x.
Yeah. So if you spend $1,000 a month on whatever, you should get $10,000 a month out of it, because we're still not considering the worst case scenario. Right.
I feel like that's big. I mean, I like it. I like that. I feel like that's not something I've ever heard. So my guess is that people are not looking at it that way, because that's a really big.
What I'll commonly hear people say, especially in real estate, which is a stupid like mistake, is, well, I made enough money off of last month's closings to pay for the service. I'm like, okay, cool. But you're not accounting for time. So giving an example, people will pay for the coldest leads ever on the internet. And they wade through a mountain of 100 leads that they're talking to, and they have marginal follow-up, and they talk to more, and then they've got some that they're kind of on the hook, and they're paying an exorbitant amount of money for those pay-per-click leads, and they finally close one deal, and it pays for last month's bill or 2 months bill.
Right.
They're like, well, it's paying for itself. It's like, okay, cool. How many hours do you work on those 100 leads? Because did it just pay for the marketing engine, or did it pay for the marketing engine in your time?
Yeah.
And that's where people miss it is, you've got to be focused on a 10x, because there's other factors. And if it's not your time, is it wasting a lot of your team's time if you have a small team, right? Or
which is also so dangerous and slippery too. When you put your team in a position that they are spinning wheels and
super inefficient.
It's super inefficient. They can feel it. They know it. They don't like it. It leads to burnout. I mean, yeah. Okay. So let's talk through. Okay. So we decided that for hiring, a good place to start is to have that 6 months of reserve.
Sure.
Okay. So all expenses, and that does not include the new salary of okay. So because
a lot of people, you get to a point where it never quite gets there, because you need that person to get you the next step. I see that a lot.
And I think that's a really hard. That's that leap that is really hard. It's like,
this goes back to, you're going to bet on yourself or not. Like,
I love that. That always gives me a nice kick in the ass, and I'm nervous about it. It's like, what am I doing? Why am I doubting myself? Yep. Like,
if you're not going to bet on you, why the hell should you have somebody else to bet on you?
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Absolutely. What is the difference, or let's talk through, there's services and that you could use for transactional type stuff. So you just pay for it once, outsource. I
think it's a great idea.
So,
it's a great middle step. So what you're talking about is transactional based fees, whether it be for marketing, whether it be for transaction closing stuff, whether it be for
that you only pay for when something happens. Yep. So it's, we're not talking, we're out. This is not a true outsource altogether. That is the bill is going to be there every month regardless. This is for easy example is a transaction coordinator on a real estate transaction. Sure. You pay when it closes.
Yep.
So
it is outsourced. The word is still outsourced, but it is not a fixed expense.
Correct.
So what we're talking about here is fixed versus variable expenses. And I like that for a while, right? It's a bridge in the gap, right? So it doesn't put you on the hook for this big salary that you may or may not be ready for. And it should be in alignment with what the value is. So I love that example, because this will tie in perfectly with what we were talking about earlier. So in real estate, so a lot of people that are listening to this had a assistant that quote unquote helped them with the transaction when they bought real estate. What the people listening probably don't know is that most of those assistants actually don't work for that agent. Okay.
Right.
So there's shared resources called transaction coordinators that will take a fee for service of $400, $500 per closing. And their job is to manage the contract, follow all the protocols, get all the paperwork signed, get updates done, order inspections, all that stuff.
Earlier you listed 4 things. You listed 4 things. That's a whole bullet point.
So it's a lot of stuff that they can do, and they represent themselves as, an assistant to whatever realtor that there was, but they did not work for them, right? It's a 1099 kind of service. And so the pros and cons are that it's a way to lift the lid as long as that time saved
is used
goes towards dollar productive activity, in my opinion. Like it's what you're doing with the time you're saving. That's going to be the difference of if you're going to grow the business, because if you don't grow it, then you're going to do the same amount of business and make less. Right. Yeah. So, and a lot of people aren't willing to do the thing that they like least is the prospecting. The thing they like least is the marketing. And so they start hiring.
So they'd be better to outsource the sales calls,
right,
and do the contract to close work.
That's it, which is again why a lot of those won't ever get off the ground, right? But what people miss is there's a point where it would be cheaper to have a full-time staff person than it is to pay the transactions. It's also a loss of brand integrity and control when you're outsourcing, because there's 30 masters. If there's one transaction associate closing 30 different deals for 30 different agents, how are you differentiating yourself against all the other agents? Because it's the same experience for all of them.
Yeah,
so you're kind of stuck. You're kind of stuck there, but it's what, and we've also now identified, in writing contractually what it's worth to close one deal. Right. So it's worth $400 to close a deal. So, how many can one handle? Well, 30. I've seen transaction coordinators handle 30, 40 deals at a time. Does that mean that transaction coordinator is worth 30 times 40 or 30 times $400?
30 times 400.
That's $12,000. No.
Not, you mean to hire, like if you were to hire them onto the team.
So a salary transaction coordinator might be $40,000.
Right.
$50,000. And now you've got a great, consistent employee that all they do is take care of your deals. And you actually are saving money versus the outsourcing it, because you were afraid to take on the expense, which was costing you more, but you didn't realize it because it's only $400 a transaction.
Paid at closing.
Right, paid at closing. So you never felt it. But it's better to, and if you didn't do a P&L, you didn't realize, I had one of an old agent I used to work with was closing 25, 30 deals a month. We was still doing transaction coordination. And I was like, and you know who it is.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you out of your damn mind? Like hire 3 people full time.
Yeah.
And you'll have twice the service, follow-up skills, all that stuff. And you'll pay at half the cost you're currently
and you get
paying
to customize the experience.
Yes.
So really that one just, I like that you said it's a bridge, and
it is not a long-term solution.
Not a long-term solution. Unless, again, going back to your goal is to stay
the same and work less hours,
and do a couple of deals a month or whatever it is. So really the biggest thing there is just to make sure that you're constantly watching the units closed per month and making sure that you're not crossing into the territory where it just doesn't make any sense at all. Okay.
Which goes back to measuring and looking at numbers, which people hate to do.
We would love to hear your comments. So if there's anything that you want to share with us as a listener, please do. And make sure that you like and subscribe and tell your friends, and send us emails at sigmansense@gmail.com.
Next time, guys.
Bye.